A Fistful of Energon is Transformers Animated Season 2, Episode 7, and 23rd overall. Originally airing in America May 31st, 2008. In it, Lockdown returns and him and Prowl try taking down Starscream, but shenanigans ensue. The episode's title is a reference to A Fistful of Dollars, the first in the absolute most famous and popular trilogies of Western films, specifically spaghetti westerns, Italian Western films, The Man with No Name or Dollars trilogy, alongside A Few Dollars More and the most famous Western film of all time, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, all of which starred the Man with No Name, played by the poster child for Western films, Clint Eastwood. The episode begins with Starscream only just now escaping from the elite guard, and how exactly he was able to get past the stasis cuffs, I don't know. Sentinel and Jazz are in this episode. They do not say anything. Meanwhile, on Dinobot Island, dear, Prowl's watching, but then alcoholic Bulkhead ruins it. The two are looking for the Dinobots to lock up, and when you know it, the show finally remembered the EMP that was important to Ratchet, so it just gave it to Prowl. They find Grimlock, and he's pissed. He almost makes some popcorn chicken until the EMP, but when you know it, he's only upset because he's somehow got a metal spike wedged into his toe. Well, the in-between. The classic, the lion paw scenario, little mouse has to take a thorn out of the... Wait a minute, it's in his, robot mode finger. How does it get stuck? Why didn't Ratchet just go? He still has to talk Prowl through how to do it. Bumblebee and Sorry are not in this episode because they are at Six Flags Disneyland, and not Cedar Point because Michigan. Oh hey, it's both Jeff's characters. Magnus calls up to tell them about Screamer, and Megatron hears it, so he puts a bounty on Screamer. So Prowl and Bulkhead head to the Ark, and with some Star Trek sound effects send out the G1 satellite, and find out because Starscream is soulless, he has an Allspark fragment signature. Even Bulkhead realizes they're super outmatched by Starscream, so Prowl just steals a space pod that they have on the Ark, defying orders and heading to the moon, where the show remembers the Nemesis is up there. If Megatron is looking for parts, it's kind of weird he doesn't just scrap that.
Gets a new modification, and suddenly he thinks don't stick to his tailpipe.
That's disgusting.
I can't hear you. There must be interference.
Personally, I've always found Bumblebee's fake static to be a lot more convincing.
He gets onto the ship and immediately finds Screamer. This leads into a zero-G fight until EMP. Well, that was easy. Lockdown literally just walks in a poncho, directly inspired by the Man with No Name, which will later inspire Wild Wheel in Cyberverse. So he just rips it off and continues the zero-G fight until Starscream escaped, and they don't notice that he's a different color. So Not Sunstorm just blows up Prowl's ship, so he hitches a ride with Lockdown and he decides to team up and use some of his gear. So he gets some samurai armor, which is going to be hilarious given the moral of this episode and a season. Lockdown hides his ship in the same lot he did in the last episode he was here. You think he, pays for this lot so the city doesn't place a new building there? Conveniently enough, it's not just only Prowl's color, but his armor also folds up into a sidecar. They find Not Skywarp, so Hotlink. He's even a coward, and this is a reference that will make a lot more sense at the end of the season. The two eventually book him, and Lockdown feels a little bit of kinship with Prowl.
Lock down to Megatron.
You're working for Megatron?
No shit. That's kind of the point.
So he tries EMP and gets countered with Snare. So Doug the Bounty Hunter literally drags Hotlink behind him on a chain. The bots find him and scold him for being a mod head. But Prowl isn't exactly wrong that they do need new gear and weapons if they're going to fight these Decepticons, which are all literally even taller than Bulkhead, and they only got through them from dumb luck. But then Non-Sunstorm tries to approach them that they can overthrow the Decepticons together. But Prowl says no and hits him with a taser stick. He even manages to disarm him. But then Ratchet scolds him, not just because he clashed into Optimus, but because he knocked over a tree and some eggs. Yeah, Prowl should have just used the EMP, but, Not Sunstorm was probably going to crash into the tree anyway. Lockdown drops off Hotlink. Blitzwing is in the episode, but because Bumblebee is not, he doesn't say anything. The bots show up and there's an old Mexican standoff between all of them. That is a reference to the end of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where three guys are pointing guns at each other. It's been referenced in everything ever, even Foster's Home around the same time as this episode, and will not be the last time Transformers does it. But then the real Screamer appears on intercom, and it turns out the clones have bombs in them, and he wants to take out everyone. Gerwalk mode. Oh yeah, right, the Decepticons can just fly away. Despite the fact that the armor will turn out to be very important to Prowl, he decides to use it to strap the two clones together and detonate a nuclear bomb in the sky of Detroit. Lockdown snuck away and he wants Prowl to team up, but he says nuts to that. You don't need no gear no mo. Meanwhile, Starscream apparently got the computer on the Nemesis to still work, and he's got at least 16 clones. And yeah, it's a big reference to the fact that Starscream tends to be repainted all the time for a bunch of foot soldiers for the Decepticons. It's a good episode, but it's very weird in hindsight of the rest of the series. Like, the moral is you don't need all this shiny gear, you can do it yourself, you're fine. But then the show will ironically bring the armor back next season, and it's very important for him for reasons we'll get to next season. Especially given the origin of the armor behind the scenes. The Dinobots didn't really need to be in the episode. Lockdown is awesome as always. Him and Prowl work off each other so well, the show's gonna completely forget that Lockdown has beef with Ratchet instead, and he's gonna become more of a Prowl villain. And the plot with Starscream being his own little rogue of his clones is really interesting and unique for the series. Overall, I'll probably give this episode a 7 out of 10. But let me know your opinions down below, as well as hitting that like button and subscribing.